Hi, I'm Dr. Rudy Cashman. I'm the Medical Wellness Director of Lufkin Hospital, a position that I acquired on July 1. I was a neurosurgeon before that for 44 years, but I'm only 39 years old. Matter of fact, I'm celebrating the 39th anniversary of my 39th birthday in April. Okay, let's have a little humor here today. We'll be speaking here about a very interesting and a very hopeful subject, type 2 diabetes, and something called diabesity. What does that really mean? Is that before people are diagnosed with type 2 diabetes, they generally have some weight gain. Some become obese or at least overweight, so that we have now the term diabesity for that. I'm now part of the diabetic team, just as a fellow motivator, educator, wellness director with the diabetes team of Dr. Mel Karras, endocrinologist, diabetic specialist, and Dr. Marco DeSantis, who lead the team of physician assistants, nurses there at Lufkin Hospital. I've been associated with them as just part of my wellness job, and I found them to do really excellent work. And we've sort of teamed up together to try to, frankly, prevent, stop, reverse, and treat type 2 diabetes. The great news is, and many people don't know because in my many years I would ask patients if they knew that type 2 diabetes is a reversible condition. Hardly any of them knew that. Myself and the diabetic team are in total agreement. It is reversible, good, 80–90% of the time. It will amaze you. It can be very quick. I watched a DVD by Dr. Mark Hyman recently, who wrote that famous book, Blood Sugar Solutions. He saw a study come out of England who had done it to a number of patients in 1 week. Dr. Franklin House published a book, The 30-Day Miracle, many years ago, who's been running a lifestyle camp in Arizona, California. The name of his book, The 30-Day Miracle. Dr. Joel Fuhrman will claim the same thing. They'll start taking your medicines away if you eat the correct food, many of them in a week or two. Yes, so that's tremendous hope there. It's something that is generally not known that well in the medical community. So as a wellness director, it's my pleasure to educate you about it. And that's really where it starts. What's really happened to us in the U.S. and across the world, frankly, is that the food we are consuming is genetically totally different than what our bodies are used to. Our genetic structure, our evolutionary biological software, look at a body as a computer. Our software is not used to the genetic structure and DNA of the food we are eating. And a revolt is occurring in our body. Our genetic structure, our genes, we have the DNA, and then we have our genetic structure, about 30,000 genes. Our genes are not used to this food that's coming at us, and it's causing a lot of chronic disease. What did type 2 diabetics get? I'll just mention a few. They have retinopathy. Many of them lose their vision. A significant number become blind. They develop vascular disease all over our body. We have 300,000 miles of blood vessels, capillaries, 300,000 miles of capillaries. They developed arteriosclerosis and vascular disease, resulting in amputations. And very serious condition, and the life expectancy is reduced tremendously. Renal disease, skin diseases, heart disease, strokes, Yes, increased rates of cancer. Yes, the elevated sugar from diabetes hooks to proteins in the blood and form what's called ages. They deposit themselves in the brain cells and cause dementia, Alzheimer's disease. Yes, much higher rate of dementia, Alzheimer's disease in type 2 diabetics. Yes, increased rates of cancer, 30 to 40% increased rate of cancer associated with being overweight and diabetes. So what am I saying is food is information. There are genes in the plant cells, in the meat cells, that react to our genes in our body. Our foods have changed so rapidly in the last 10,000 years, but our genes that we are born with haven't changed very much in hundreds of thousands of years. And a revolt is occurring, and so we have these chronic diseases that take 20 years of our life and some sooner. Many type 2 diabetics or pre-diabetics. The pre-diabetes is at 5-10 years before they say you have diabetes. Frankly, it's been going on for a long time, and I explain that to you in detail. So they have found now recently plant genes in our blood. Yes, so we are reacting to our genetic structure with the genes of what we're eating. Our fork is more powerful than a pill because of the genetic information in it. Type 2 diabetes in some patients, as Dr. Mark Harmon published in his book, and I've read from many other authors also, and my personal experience, because I took, even as a neurosurgeon, I took pictures of a lot of the patients I saw when I treated them for a back problem or a brain tumor, whatever, if they had type 2 diabetes. I would coach them once a month for about a year for free. I took pictures of them. They're in my cell phone. I got their permission. And many of them lost their diabetes. I was just testing what I was reading, and it is indeed true. It's a global crisis. You'll notice in the paper the other day, Mexico surpassed us in the diabetes rate and the obesity rate. Same thing. They're eating genetically modified food products. The corn isn't that C4 corn they used to eat for hundreds of years. They're eating genetically modified corn now, and their bodies are revolting. They're gaining a lot of weight. They're developing type 2 diabetes. 90% of the people who have these problems are not aware of it. They haven't read about it. Maybe us providers haven't educated them about it. And it's an extreme, serious problem in Mexico. They've started taxing fast foods and sugary drinks now in Mexico, but that alone isn't going to do it. But maybe it's a start to reduce the usage of it. So let's become the CEO of your own healthcare. You must participate in your healthcare. That's number one paradigm under the culture of wellness. You have to educate yourself, or we have to educate you, and you have to participate in your healthcare if you plan to be well. And so I'm trying to create a culture of wellness. Number one is participation. Number two is what you eat. Number three is fitness, for example, and some others. But we'll go through this one at a time. So proper nutrition is critical. I'll teach you what good food is. I think most of us don't pay attention to what we're eating. We don't look at the food or what we're buying. We're not paying attention. And believe me, food industry is interested in selling things. They're not going to make the decision for you. And exercise is important. We'll discuss that in more detail. I think we all need to walk a half hour a day, at least lift light weights 3 days a week. But I tell you, exercise is not a great way to lose weight. Maybe that'll help you 10-20%. If you don't eat the right food, weight loss is not going to occur. You're going to just eat back, unless you're running triathlons, you're just going to eat back what you've lost in exercise. I'm sorry to say that. Exercise is important. It'll improve your basic metabolic rate. You'll burn calories quicker, and it shows that you're motivated. So in a sense, it will work, but you've got to pick the right food, and we'll teach you that. So when does education begin? Everybody says that's conception. Wrong. It becomes before conception. What the father and the mother did before that, whether they smoked or not, if they exercised or not, is expressed in their genes. So something that's been recently described and discovered called epigenetics. In other words, your genetic structure can indeed modify itself through proper habits, and that'll be inherited again for a few years, but it will never be part of your permanent genetic change. So it's very important what mother and father did before conception, and then what the mother, her habits while the baby is in the uterus, what the mother does will affect it even more. How much she eats, what kind of food that she's eating. One of my grandchildren recently, Heidi, the mother whose birthday is today, happy birthday, Heidi, said that the young boy doesn't seem to eat fatty foods. And I said, Heidi, do you remember? I told you eat more of a plant diet during the pregnancy. So you got to teach him to eat fat. That's not something that you're born with. We're born with taste for sweet, but not for fat. And I think spirituality is part of healing. I like to mention that when you read Rick Warren's recent about the Daniel plan, the proper way of eating he's promoting in the churches. I think if we have spirituality, we're more likely to heal. So I think that's a good thing. And physical fitness, I think, is important. Proper weight, exercise, some muscle mass, that's part of healing. So you want a mind-body connection. I think that's important. So our biology is programmed to eat all you can eat. It's a survival mechanism. You know, hundreds of thousands of years ago, there wasn't that much food around. So, frankly, we ate seasonally. You eat like anything when food was available. You stored it as fat, and you could maybe not eat for a month, and you would live. Those people have been selected genetically, and more of them alive today. It's called a thrifty gene, the ability to store fat. Some of us in some social and racial groups have this gene, and those genes don't express themselves unless they eat the wrong food. The Mexicans in Mexico that were eating the proper food, they have normal weight. The Africans eat mainly a plant diet. They have normal weight. They come to this country and eat the mad, sad, toxic American diet, and their bodies are exploding. So our brain, so it's not just your will. Our brain is programmed to grab all the food that you can. It's an evolutionary survival mechanism. And it affects the brain, makes us feel good. Food makes us feel good. Food is addictive. Food is as addictive as cocaine. Yes, I debated that with someone, and I think they won the debate. And so food, especially sugar, is addictive. It affects your brain, affects your dopamine circuitry, your serotonin dopamine circuitry. It's very addictive. And some people, it's just like alcohol, which is largely sugar too, of course, just like cocaine. Sugar is very addictive. For some people, it takes a bit to get over it. It's usually a 2-week detox, less sugary products, that will work. So 1/2 the people in this nation have diabesity. Yeah, I was recently at 2 different weddings, and fortunately or unfortunately, I see it because I write about it. And believe me, I've changed my food habits too. My mom and dad had a deli in New York. You think I don't know about bad food? I sure do, and I sure have eaten it too. But I don't generally, 90% of the time, don't now. And 1 out of 2 people in this country have diabesity. Yeah, the majority of them don't know it. The majority of them don't know it. 20-30% of the people of normal weight have abnormal body chemistry. So you must be tested early in life. As a teenager, even if your teenager is skinny, get the blood tested. See if their cholesterol is elevated, and watch what they're eating. They may look great, but inside they actually may be sick. So I recommend biometric testing, blood testing every few years. If you have a problem, obviously we'll wait to get it at least once a year, maybe even every few months till it's corrected. because we can diagnose diabesity very early, and that's what I'm trying to promote. I finished just reading a book called The Golden Opportunity. This is a golden opportunity to test it very early, but even before you have that 10, 15-year period of pre-diabetes where your blood sugar is normal, your HbA1c is normal, but your serum insulin is up. And what does insulin do? It causes the production of very low density LDL, which causes arteriosclerosis. Insulin causes inflammation of your joints, your arthritis in your hips and knees, causes dementia, increased rates of cancer, increased rates of autoimmune disease. So when you go in to see your provider, demand that they run a 2-hour glucose tolerance test. You fast for overnight for 8 hours, you swallow about 75 grams of sugar, and then they get it. And before you do that swallowing, they check your fasting blood sugar and your serum insulin. That's the one you want to know about. That's the one that's forgotten about. And then at 1 hour, same thing. 2 hours, same thing. Blood sugar, serum insulin. You will then know if you're pre-diabetic. Like I said, your blood sugar may be normal, yet your insulin is elevated. If at that point you exercise more, lost 10, 15 pounds of weight, I'd probably added 20 years to your life. I do that almost every day. I do that almost every day. I meet somebody every day who's in that situation, doesn't even know it. The most recent one was a nurse in the doctor's lounge. She had type 2 diabetes. She was only 15, 20 pounds overweight. Heck, her disease could be eliminated in a week or two. She didn't know it. But today, this morning, she's walking around with 2 books I gave her to read about it and gave her a little talk about it. Very common thing. Very common thing. So food is medicine, better, frankly, than a pill. Of course, some of us need pills. Don't change your diabetic medications until blood sugars are corrected, and do it in conjunction with your doctor. Check your blood sugar 6 times a week. But I tell you honestly, many patients are off medication. Dr. House will say, Dr. Mark Harmon will say, Dr. Furman will say 2 or 3 weeks. But do it with your doctor. Don't just do it by yourself, and announce it to your doctor what you're going to do. So about 1.2 billion people in this country are overweight. In my experience of 44 years, I saw so many type 2 diabetics, and the rate is increasing tremendously. So let's take back our health care. We must participate in our health care. And it's a golden opportunity to be tested. And the 2-hour glucose tolerance test is most important. What's the difference between type 1 and type 2 diabetes? Type 1 usually is juvenile, where it's autoimmune reaction where a virus, something attacks the pancreas. You have no insulin. That's type 1. But 90% of type 2 diabetics, because the insulin level has been up for so long, the pancreas throws in the towel. It's sick and tired of doing that extra work, and it dies. So now he turns into also a type 1 diabetic. So there's a combination of type 1 and type 2. And even the type 1 diabetic has to watch their weight because they need more insulin. And insulin is an anabolic hormone. It causes weight gain, paints your arteries, increased rates of cancer. So even a type 1 diabetic has to be of average weight. Many don't realize that. And if they have a pump in place, sometimes the insulin level goes up. And you'll know, and I've noticed a number of people who have pumps in them, they're heavier. They're heavier. And there's a price to pay for that. So type 1 is the autoimmune reaction, and type 2 becomes type 1 when the pancreas wears out. And there's been 1,000% increase in diabetes in children. Children now, it used to be called juvenile diabetic type 1, not anymore, because the adult diabetes, that was type 2. Now you see it in kids. You see it in kids. You see an overweight child, get the blood sugar checked, run a 2-hour glucose tolerance test. A significant number are pre-diabetic. And I think that the blood test should be run on every child periodically. A pediatrician needs to be a wellness doctor. Family doctor needs to be a wellness doctor. Put the child in front of the computer, show them what their body mass index looks like and their weight looks like, and have the blood work. I think it's very important. Let me tell you something about fructose metabolism. You say, fructose metabolism? Well, fructose is a sugar. Well, fruits, got it right. Well, it's more than fruit. This is very interesting. Sucrose, table sugar, is 50% glucose and 50% fructose. Wow. It's not just in fruit. I mean, you've heard of fructose corn syrup, and we'll speak about that in a minute. Let me tell you about how it's metabolized, how it's dealt with in the body. Glucose goes into the blood, raises the insulin level, raises the sugar level, 20% goes to the liver, 20% to the brain, and the rest is used up in your muscles. No big deal unless you overload with it, okay? All right? The fructose, okay, goes to the blood, doesn't raise the blood sugar, doesn't raise the insulin level, goes to the liver, uses up ATP, your energy molecule, very quickly, and turns and makes fat, yes, and insulin resistance, so insulin can't get the sugar in the cell, and makes very low density LDL, the thing that burrows in your arteries and causes arteriosclerosis, very bad, causes dementia, causes increased cancer, causes neuropathy, causes retinopathy. So it's not the fat, it's the fructose. The fructose is really the enemy. So is fruit perfectly safe? Yeah, 2 or 3 pieces. It's okay to eat about 35 grams of fructose a day, but you're eating 10 pieces of fruit, you're eating a lot of fructose, and you're going to gain weight. I spoke to someone the other day, they just couldn't figure out why they couldn't lose weight. I eat very healthy. So what do you eat the most of? He says, fruit. Well, remember I said, more than 2 or 3 pieces of fruit a day, a lot of fructose, and that can lead to obesity. Let me speak about the 5 stages of diabetes in a minute. We have, it's a very excellent description of it, actually, in Dr. Atkins' book. I don't particularly recommend this book because I think it's too much protein, but all these diet books you read about, most of them get some decent chapter or 2, and this is great. He discusses diabetes in 5 stages. Number 1 is where you have insulin resistance, where you have a cell, you cover it with a lot of receptors, and it's insulin's job to take the sugar and put it in the cell. That's its job. That's how you make your energy molecule, ATP. When you have insulin resistance, these receptors are covered with fat, and the insulin cannot open the door to get the sugar in to make ATP. That is what insulin resistance is. I rarely meet a patient that could tell me what it is. I think it's important. I make them generally a little drawing and explain that. It's very important to note. Stage 1. Stage 2 is hyperinsulinemia. That's where insulin level is elevated. Stage 3 is where the sugar goes up and down. You feel good, you feel bad. That's stage 3. Stage 4 is type 2 diabetes. So late in the stages of diabetes, they diagnose type 2. You're diabetic now. For Pete's sake, you were diabetic at stage 3, stage 2, stage 1. That's diabesity. Those first 3 stages are diabesity. Now you're in stage 4 and you have diabetes. Oh, I'm taking my pills, I'm just fine. Well, you need to take the pills, but you're not fine. You still got diabetes. What I'm saying is you could get rid of it the majority of the time if you get to a normal weight and had to eat a nutrient-dense food, which I will describe to you. And that's throughout this book, End of Diabetes, Dr. Furman. My name is in the back of that book, Franklin House, 30-Day Miracle, Sugar Solutions by Max Hyman, Richard Johnson, Sugar Fix. It's all in those books. This is nothing new. And let's speak a minute. The problem is insulin resistance. It isn't just the blood sugar. It's insulin resistance, which you have to straighten out. Remember what causes insulin resistance? Fat in the blood, fatty diet, and fructose. Fructose, that half of sucrose. It isn't just the glucose, the sugar. The main culprit, matter of fact, I'm writing a book, the chemical formula of glucose and fructose is the same. C6H12O6, C6H12O6. They're exactly the same, but they don't act the same. One is the isomer of the other, mirror image of the other. So I'm writing a book, you'll love this title. I woke up 2 in the morning with this. Remember, they look like twins, same formula, okay, although they act indifferently. So I call it fructose, the evil twin. You got to admit, that's a good title. That book will be out shortly. Let's speak a minute about wheat belly, and you read a lot about it. There's a famous book by that name, Wheat Belly, a very good book to read. I recommend that you read it. So wheat is part of weight because of gluten, our body's reaction to it. About a third of the people who have allergy to gluten are type 2 diabetics. So it's just strongly part of biometric testing, blood testing, that you get a gluten panel test done. And to get a gluten sensitivity is 7 times more common even than celiac disease, which 1 in 133 people have. So to get a gluten sensitivity test, which takes it, they usually even have to send it out of town. But if you get symptoms that cannot possibly be explained, I think gluten testing it actually is important. So when I see an overweight person walking down the street, and they may not even be type 2 diabetic yet, but the very low density LDL from fructose is inflaming the body. I mean, to me, it's a body on fire. So I went to a wedding recently where I would say 80% of the people were seriously overweight. Seriously overweight. I was looking at 80 fire. I was looking at fire. These bodies are on fire. They have diabesity, and their future is not good. But I would say hardly any of them knew it. Hardly any of them knew it. And that's the reason I'm here today, to try to educate you and teach about prevention. In this country, we're running a 70% obesity rate. Certain ethnic groups, racial groups are 90%. Oh yeah, they're 90% because their evolutionary body, they have that thrifty gene, is not compatible with the type of food they're eating. If they were to eat 80% plant diet, 20% low-fat, lean meat type diet, it would all go away. It would all go away. They're all curable, but they don't know it. It's a real tough situation. And you can go to certain meetings, churches, weddings, and you can see, you look around you, that people are not aware, they're blind to it, the majority, and they don't know the answer. So education is important. This is a no judgment zone. This is a no judgment zone. I work out at Planet Fitness, no judgment zone. I totally agree with that. We're not judging anybody. I'm educating. This is about education because I want to save your lives. You know, I love my patients. And so certain ethnic groups are very prone to this. As we can see, the Mexican story, the Asian story, South Korea, South Vietnam, they're exploding because their rice, for example, is high glycemic index. That was fine. They get away with that. Although it's very, very sugary, 40% rice diet, that was fine. But now they added 30% American food, the fad, sad, toxic American diet, and they're exploding with obesity and type 2 diabetes. It's a true story. My friend Dr. Furman was hired to go to Korea and teach them. Very interesting. Many people are addicted to sugar because sugar affects the circuitry, dopamine circuitry, which by cigarettes and alcohol and gambling, narcotics, all the same circuitry, all the same circuitry. So we can see patients who may have 20 different diseases, from heart attacks to strokes to vascular disease to amputations to renal disease to dialysis, but there can be one common denominator many times. What they're eating the wrong food. Too much fructose, and fat is part of it. I mean, if you're overweight to begin with, you're eating fatty food, that'll add to it. And fat, especially from animals, for example, will have a lot of omega-6s in it, which cause inflammation in the body, and has cancer factors in it. So animal products are not the best thing to eat a lot of, and you have to know where they came from. We need to eat a nutrient-dense diet. So the vitamins, the minerals, the 25,000 phytochemicals, and that's foods of color, except you add mushrooms and onions, which are very healthy. In essence, 80% plant diet, 70% plant diet, and find out what lean protein is. That's important. because that won't raise your blood sugar. And you get to know what, like potatoes, for example, in a diabetic, they can raise the blood sugar pretty quick. So you get to know those reactions, and that maybe overdo it along that. But I eat half a plate of high vegetable diet, a quarter of a plate of complex carbs that you tolerate, and 20% nuts and seeds, and some lean meat. It's a very good way of eating. This is what an excellent way to get your weight down without a fight, without having the diet. You're not dieting. You're just picking different food. Did I ever say use the word diet? No. Just eat different food. So our food loads the gun. Our food loads the gun. Our gene loads the gun. Our genetic structure loads the gun. Okay, we can only tolerate such. But it's the food that pulls the trigger. Our genes load the gun, but it's the food that pulls the trigger. So it's extremely important if you're pre-diabetic or have diabesity, pre-diabetic or diabetes, what you eat is critical. That is critical because you could be pulling the trigger, a reaction to your genetic structure. 70 to 90 million people in this country have non-alcoholic fatty liver disease because of the fructose making fat in the liver. If you do CT scans and MRIs, which I looked at a lot because I looked at a back trouble, you'd see the liver full of fat. Yeah, tremendous number of people, their liver is full of fat, very dangerous. The most common cause of liver transplant in the future will be fatty liver, non-alcoholic fatty liver disease. If you decide to eat a proper diet, when you're looking at a belly, on a pot belly, that fat is not under the skin. It's in your organs. It's in your liver, your pancreas, your intestines. Yes, even in the heart. You see lobs of it hanging off the heart. But when you start losing weight, that's the first fat to go. And that fat is very metabolically active. Fat is a gland. It isn't quietly sitting there. It makes about 20 nasty chemicals, cancer chemicals, inflammatory chemicals, estrogen. You could reduce the breast cancer, uterine cancer, ovarian cancer, probably 30 to 50% if you get to normal weight. Uterine cancer is caused 70% of the time by obesity. Told to me, I read that in the literature, I know the page, I can quote the articles to you, and it was told to me recently by a very nice female cancer specialist in the city. She confirmed it to me. It is absolutely true, but yet it's generally not known. We got to be aware of this. Let me tell you about the Pima Indians. The Pima Indians from Mexico were very healthy people, eating roots and vegetables and C4 corn and lean meat, very healthy. They moved to Arizona and then had to eat the American food being grown there, altered corn products, for example, fatty meat, totally different diet. 80% of them became type 2 diabetic. They just exploded, and many of them died before age 45. Oh yeah, it's still going on today. Their children in Los Angeles having the same darn trouble. So it is their evolutionary genetic structure, again, reacting to the genetic structure of the food and causing all this illness. And there have been other ethnic groups have been studied this way and have found that. And so type 2 diabetes and its chronic diseases are preventable, stoppable, and Dean Ornish in his famous book, Stopping, Preventing, Reversing Heart Disease, with angiograms proved these things can be reversed, significantly reversed. So don't throw in the towel. And like I said, Dr. Harmon, Dr. House, Dr. Furman, myself, other people, Dr. McDougall, Dr. Esseltine, we're all saying these diseases are preventable, stoppable, reversible, and then what we have to treat, we treat. And we have the best of treating it. For example, in this diabetic team I work with, they're tremendous. They know how to treat it, but we are committed. This group is committed to prevent it, stop it, reverse it, and treat it as necessary. Join our team. The hearts are in it. I can tell from this team. Their hearts are in it. So food is powerful medicine. So genes load the gun, but food pulls the trigger. Food pulls the trigger. So your genes are not your destiny. Your food determines your destiny. And so it's not pre-diabetes anything. When you get stage 1, 2, 3 diabetes, you're already, in essence, diabetic, but you're undiagnosed. That's what I'm trying to do by getting early serum insulin and fasting blood sugar at stages in your life, even if you're thin, to catch. I think we'd save $1 trillion if this was done on a regular basis by healthcare providers, family doctors, internists. We all did it. We'd save, I think, $1 trillion, and look at the amount of illness that we would save. Early diagnosis, because we could, at that point, tell you, encourage you what to eat, have you participate in your health care, exercise regularly. These things can be stopped. And the first symptom of a heart attack in people with diabesity, first symptom, not angina, nothing. You know what the first symptoms is? 50% of the time of the heart attacks that occur, death. Grab the chest and they die, totally unannounced. Never had angina, never had nothing. They just grab the chest and they die. See why I'm passionate about reversing and stopping this thing? And and what Dr. Mark Hyman is saying, what I'm saying, what Dr. Furman is saying, what our diabetic doctors are saying, treat the cause. The cause. It's not just, here's your prescription, I don't want to participate in my health care, and I go home. Unfortunately, I've been told by the diabetic doctors that 50% of the patients are not compliant. They won't do what they're told to do. And I got to feel that I'm not going to blame the patient necessarily totally on this, is that we need to educate them more. We need to educate them more and let them know this is a stoppable, reversible disease, and find different ways to motivate the patient, maybe through computer systems. Group therapy is indeed available. We are indeed starting groups of 5 or 6 in Lutheran Hospital. We learned that from Cleveland Clinic, and see them in groups, try to motivate them. That's our job. If 50% are non-compliant, it's our job to try to change it, because we're doctors. We love our patients. And but treat the cause of it, eating the wrong food. So just decreasing the sugar may not be the answer. We need to encourage you to change as to what you're eating. So we need to upgrade your information. Your genetic information is what we need to do. So medicine or surgery to treat the present situation is not necessarily the cure of it. I mean, we have excellent program for surgery, for obesity, and many of these patients, their diabetes goes away. But you're altering the human body, and surgery runs some risk, especially the size of some of the patients. But it works very well. So how come they lose their type 2 diabetics? Their type 2 diabetes quickly? We're changing the genetic information between the body and the food. To a certain part of the bowel, the food no longer gets near, and that type 2 diabetes gets reversed quickly. So again, end of your fork is more powerful than a pill. Now they speak about nutrigenomics. Nutrigenomics. Now that we're starting to speak about, and Dr. Mark Harmon especially speaks about it, how our food and its genetic structure reacts to our genetic structure. So that's called nutrigenomics. So every bite is genetic information. So you have to learn as to what good and bad food is, because you're affecting your reaction in the body through genetics. Every bite. So you want to be eating, let's speak about, what should we be eating? Whole fresh food, not factory food. As Dr. Fallon would say in some of his famous book, eat food that's grown as a plant and not made in a plant. Okay? And 1.7 billion people in this world are overweight. We mentioned this previously. You say, what do you eat, Dr. Cashman? Well, someone was telling me the other day, I asked him that, and Starbucks, and he said, well, I eat seafood. All the food I see, I eat. Okay, not going to be that way. Okay, I eat a very strict way, which my body's used to. My body has changed. I don't crave bad food as much as I used to, although still little sugar fix now and then done, certainly especially over the holidays. But I eat mainly 80% plant diet, lean meat 20% maybe. So we are invaded by a diet of fat, salt, and sugar. And remember I said sugar is the main enemy because it affects our psychiatry. But so does fat. I mean, this has been studied by industry. The big Michael Morris wrote a great book, Fat, Salt, and Sugar. He really went into these factories and businesses and really studied them, and it's scary. It's scary. They figured out there's a place in Philadelphia paid for by industry and the government. They figured out that our bliss point for sugar is about 26%. They can increase the sugar content of fruits about 26%. We don't like it above that. And our functional MRI scans, the brain just lights up with pleasure along the dopamine circuitry. For children, it's 36% because the brain is not fully developed. Industry knows exactly what we like. So fat and sugar stimulate the pleasure center. The brain just lights up. But fat, if you're overweight to begin with, fat will make you more fat. And you ought to watch what type of fat you eat. We all need some fat, though. We need omega-3. That's anti-inflammatory. Omega-6 is pro-inflammatory. You're more likely to get those in nuts and fish and flaxseed. Most of us know that. So to take a supplement of omega-3 or flax seeds, put it in your smoothie in the morning or something, that is helpful. Vitamin D, we need more because we don't have a lot of sunshine around here, and the multivitamin. But that's about all the supplements I recommend. Some people take 100. Don't do it. The interaction is dangerous. And remember, sugar is toxic, but the evil twin fructose is even more toxic. And so significant of people are indeed addicted to sugar. It's what makes us feel good. And addiction is a serious matter. I don't belittle it because when you don't have enough serotonin and dopamine, we're traveling down here. And we're willing to do anything just to have a good day, to feel good. I've dealt enough with addictions from narcotics, prescriptions, and things that I've seen over the years that I understand the point. But we need to, you can detox, I've been told by psychologists, addictionologists, you can detox even cocaine within a week. So no less sugar, week or two. So to start a way of eating where you want to change radically, detox for a week or two, just no sugar. No fructose, eat more of a protein diet, and exercise. So detoxing for a week or two, I think, is a good thing. So remember, insulin is a fat storage hormone. If you're on insulin, and if you can somehow with proper eating get away from it, weight loss is a lot easier. Insulin is an anabolic hormone. It will make you gain weight and lay down weight. So I recommend exercise at least 30 minutes a day. Just walk. That's fine. And maybe do some weightlifting 3 days a week, because if you can add a pound of muscle, that eats up 50 calories per pound. You add 3 pounds of muscle, 150 calories at rest will go away. So, and you will increase your basic metabolic rate, which will eat up some calories. So exercise is important. I myself, since this job is a lot less pressure than my neurosurgery job, I already played tennis 3 nights a week, even as a neurosurgeon, but now I'm walking a half hour a day and I work out 1 hour Planet Fitness. It's a habit now. I can hardly go without it, but I have more time now. But do it at home. You got to figure out some way. We all need to get some exercise in. Even just walking is fine. I'd like to mention a minute the Daniel Plan. Rick Warren wrote the book, The Purpose for Life, years ago. which I thought was a good book. It's nice to have a purpose in life. I'm not exactly 39 years old, so I feel very lucky because I have a purpose in life. You got to develop a purpose in life. I don't care what it is. Develop some purpose, something that you like to do, and I feel so lucky it's that way. But the Daniel Plan, they took the work of Dr. Ammon and Dr. Mark Harmon, who I quoted there, and they put together a book and a DVD, and I encourage you to look at it, where Rick Warren, who runs a huge church in Sacramento, 20,000 members, was given a baptism, and a lot of people had a shirt off or something that he could tell their size, 500 people he had, and he looked at himself, he decided, wow, we're all overweight. It's about like that wedding I went to, okay? We're all overweight. So he decided to do something about it. And he hired these other doctors, some of which attended his church. They put together the Daniel Plan, a way of eating, and he has the 5 F's: faith, food, fitness, focus, and friends. I think it's a good system. And I'm not looking at it just from a church standpoint. I think it's excellent. Matter of fact, I met with a minister last night, and I'm going to make this part of extra things that I do. Go into churches with this because it's spiritual to begin with, and it's an excellent way of eating. I encourage you to look at that DVD and read that book. It's essentially what I've been teaching all along. And you know I quote these doctors liberally. So we have 12,000 diseases in a big book in this country, 12,000 diseases, but I tell you the causes are very few. A significant number is just habits. Just habits. It's 90% of the illness that we're looking at, 70, 90% are just to what you eat, what exercise we do, whether we're smoking or not, and what things are affecting our dopamine circuitry. And these things can be avoided. So good health habits are very important. So that's the reason being a wellness doctor is really a pleasure. But American diet is fat, salt, and sugar. It's got to change. The healthcare costs are just horrendous. And so the way we want to eat is a combination of vitamins, minerals, and phytochemicals that interact. The symphony, the mosaic of interaction lead to good health. They're the enzymes. Foods of color, add mushrooms and onions, I already mentioned. And if you eat that way 80% of the time, you're going to be very healthy. And children today, many times, are undernourished. Yeah. They're eating all this fat, sad, toxic American food, and they're not getting some of the essential vitamins and minerals, and they're undernourished and starting to get scurvy and different diseases. Obesity is a serious problem among our children. Some of these government-supported foods, they're giving them cheeses and different things which you don't have to eat. Cheese is 80% fat. It's making the children fat. They're feeding them food with chemicals and hormones. Milk product, for example, let me speak about this for a minute. I mean, you can read about yourself. I've given shows on it before, that after age 2, milk products have no value to anyone before that. It's critical. Mother's milk is the best milk you can possibly have because it has the right amount of protein, sugar, and fat in it. But milk is produced by 5,400 mammals, okay? But each milk produced for each mammal is totally different from the other. The protein in our milk is a lot less than the protein in a rat. A rat doubles in size in 4 days. A human in 180 days. But the milk of a mammal is meant for that mammal's baby, not human babies. The casein, the protein, and the lactase, the sugar in our milk, have a lot of allergic reactions, a lot of ear infections, a lot of asthma, a lot of allergy, GI upsets are due to the milk the children are eating. Asians don't have the enzymes for milk. Black Americans, 75% don't have the enzyme. Only 50% of white people have the enzyme for milk. After age 4, the enzymes go away. So they cause abdominal upsets. Increased type 1 diabetes rate is up. The way the milk is produced today, if you knew, you wouldn't give it. They feed a cow normally produces 1.5 gallons of milk a day. Okay, now they produce 10 gallons, and how'd they do that? They give them hormones. They put them in a cage. They don't let them move. They even give you the milk of a pregnant cow. The milk today, when tested, has in it 57 hormones. I got it out of a scientific paper. Why would you want to give 57 hormones to your child? It doesn't make sense. Dr. Harmon in his book says when they checked the blood and the umbilicus of a newborn baby, they find 287 foreign chemicals in it from all these sprays and chemicals they add to food. Yes, it's right in his book. It's almost not believable. He says, we humans are not fit to eat. We make whoever does it sick instinct. But it's right in his book. So let's talk about fructose corn syrup. What happened is the government supports the price of corn, so it makes it a lot cheaper. They genetically change it. They put on hormones and chemicals and pesticides. In Iowa, there's no fences left. It's just a genetically modified corn, and they feed it to beef. Very different corn than the corn we're used to eating, C4 corn, say, from Mexico. Years ago, and it's making the animals sick. It's making the cow sick. When the last 150 days of a cow is spent in a cage. They don't let it move. It stays in its feces. They use pesticides and hormones and other fatty products to fatten it up. And that's really what you are eating. So you have to be aware of what you eat. So they have these concentrated animal feeding organizations. That's where most of the beef is raised. They're doing the same thing for fish. Most of the fish you're eating is off a farm. It's not the ocean. Always ask the waiter, is this from a farm or the ocean? Because it has a lot of omega-6s in it, which are the inflammatory hormones. You don't want that. You want the omega-3, which is in good fish, in ocean fish. So you need to ask about that. There are restaurants in town, I know their names, where the fish are from the ocean. Some of them are very famous. The fish is from a pond. And what do they feed them? Petroleum products. They feed them what's left over from animal slaughters, anything to fatten them up. And when the fish is fat, they send it to you. A lot of times it's even been around for a week or two and it's not that healthy to begin with. So always ask, where's the fish from? Today, Americans are eating 150 pounds of sugar a year. We used to eat about 3 pounds a year, okay? People today, especially children, are consuming a half a pound of sugar a day, 35 teaspoonful a day. We're eating 66 pounds of fructose a year. Remember, about fructose corn syrup is not a lot different than the fructose I was speaking about earlier. It's sweeter and it's cheaper because the Japanese figured out through an enzyme how to make it cheaper, and industry seized on it immediately and put it in our sugary drinks. So our sugary drinks account for 50% of obesity, right? So just throw them away. Water is your drink with some lemon and lime. Everything, these sugary drinks cause 50% obesity, very high fructose corn syrup. Don't drink juice like orange juice, very high fructose corn syrup. Eat the orange with the fiber. Remember I said 2 or 3 pieces of fruit are fine, but you don't want to eat more than 35 grams of fructose a day. If you look at Richard Johnson's book, Sugar Fix, in the back, there's 20 pages. They'll be back in my book too. The fructose, the evil twin, they'll be back in that. And tells you the fructose content of food, good to eat. Carrot cake, 50 grams. Yeah, 50 grams. Okay, so you got to know how much is in there because it'll add up through the day. So high fructose corn syrup is a frankenfood. It's a frankenfood. And you got to look at the labels. You got to read your labels. And corn sugar is the most processed food there is. And it is metabolized in the liver. Corn is metabolized in the liver. It will help form a very low density LDL. So you got to watch the amount of corn that you're eating. And fructose corn syrup will cause a leaky gut. It'll make holes in your gut, so you absorb foreign proteins, you react to them, so it's not good there either. But what's 50% of the solution of proper eating? High fiber diet. High fiber diet, because fiber, complex sugars, will keep you from absorbing a lot of the nasty food, a lot of the cholesterol. So, and if you have trouble chewing it, it's high fiber. So get fiber into your life. It's only from plants. Meat has no fiber. Meat has no fiber. Plants have fiber, the complex sugar. So that's very important. And you have to pay attention to your hormones. Get your hormone checks. Dr. Harmon will talk about that. Your thyroid test, your steroid test. Yes, even check your testosterone, your estrogen level, because type 2 diabetics, for example, have a lot of problems with their sexuality. They're not interested any longer because their hormones have dropped. So that can be avoided by eating a proper diet. We already spoke about supplements, and get a gluten test. I think gluten testing, is important, and to avoid dairy products. What's the answer? Keep it simple. Okay, get tested. Okay, make a commitment. Grab a friend or a group like the Daniel Plan. We'll grab a group. We'll have a group. Educate yourself, which we're doing today. And no sugary drinks, no diet drinks, 6 to 8 glasses of water daily. Keep track of your fructose. If it has a label, don't eat it. Avoid food in a box, a package, or a can if you can't. Don't add salt. Stay away from deadly flour, sugar products. No fructose content in your food. And they'll use like levulose. They'll use different names, so you get to know what the phony names are. Don't add artificial sweeteners because they increase your taste for sugar. You eat more sugary food, and they cause belly fat. One way to check to see if you need to lose some weight: take your clothes off, stand in front of a mirror, and jump up and down. That's the belly fat test. Okay, and remember, said belly fat's in your liver. So eat organic foods without chemicals, lean meat. And to avoid the nasty chemicals. Increase intake of dark green leafy vegetables, spinach, collards, turnips, greens, mustard greens. Limit intake of saturated fat. Remember, you don't avoid all fat, but fat is not necessarily good. Eat fruit and learn about the glycemic index, the rate your blood sugar goes up. You want to eat 50 or less. That's important. What are great foods? Asparagus, bell peppers, broccoli, cauliflower, cucumbers, good protein foods, beans, chicken, eggs, fish, nuts, seeds, turkey. Keep some good snacks around. Carry them in your car so if you get hungry. So some secrets: all carbohydrates not alike. Some are starchy, complex carb. You learn about ones that are resistant starch, so they have a lot of fiber. You won't absorb them all. And you look in my books. I wrote a book called The Secret of the Non-Diet. It's on Amazon Books. It'll tell you about the right foods to eat. I also have a book there, Reversing Type 2 Diabetes, Dr. Joel Fuhrman, End of Diabetes. I think the work of Dr. Mark Harmon, Sugar Solutions, Dr. Richard Johnson, Sugar Fix. Then he put out another book called Fat Switch, How to Turn on the Fat Switch, Turn It Off. These are very good books to read. You must become informed. So in summary, you want to, half your plate should be vegetables, and another quarter should be good complex carbs, and the other quarter nuts and seeds and lean meats. If you eat this way, you're going to be very healthy, look great, probably live to be 100, feel good, look good, avoid dementia. That's a big one. You're going to avoid dementia doing the darn thing, and don't forget to exercise a good 30 minutes, at least 5 days a week, every day if you can. If you get older, it's more important because our muscles deteriorate about 3% a year, so it becomes more important. Do some core exercises. I have 20 of them memorized. I do this every morning for 10 minutes while I'm at Species or Planet Fitness. Keep the core strong. You reduce your falls and improves your balance. And we'll have follow-up talks and DVDs available to have a look at them, and books too, because I'm convinced the diabetic team at Lutherans, Dr. Karras, Dr. DeSantos, and the PAs and nurse practitioners, their hearts are with you. These are very sincere people, and we can stop, prevent, reverse, and treat your condition, and you can be very healthy. And It'll certainly make you feel better, and it's a work of love. It's a work of love. And thank you very much for listening. I hope you follow us by looking at some other DVDs and books that we write. We certainly have your health in mind. Lutheran Health Network has a heart in this. They want to keep you well, but if you need acute treatment, surgery, medicine, we sure know how to do it. But we also can cure you. We can cure you of type 2 diabetes 80% of the time or so. And Dr. Harmon uses the word cure. And I happen to agree with him. I love you all. Thank you very much. Namaste.